around Dragon's Den.
You know, I invested in TruLocal because I believed in the business, the product, and the founder.
So it took about 4 years before I was comfortable thinking that, okay, the company's not going to go under tomorrow. But I think that old school mentality was very, oh, sure, fine. We're annoyed that you're leaving and this is annoying, but, you know, go do it. You're going to fail anyway. And, you know, I always joke about it now, but now we're significantly bigger than they are. And we became their biggest competitors in like a year and a half. So we sold TruLocal $16.7 million. You know, it's life-changing. The whole thing was amazing. And now the lens is...
Hey guys, before we get into today's video, just a quick heads up. Owen's mic was turned off for about 15 minutes. And after that, it is back on and it's beautiful. So just a heads up about that. So when you hear that drop, just know that what that is. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to Hustle Over Everything. This is the podcast where you receive stories, tips, and tactics from entrepreneurs who have done it. I'm Alex.
And I'm Owen Osinde.
And today, man, we have a treat for you. I always say treat, but listen, today we got a treat for you. You got someone who, when I say who's done it, I'm really serious about that. All right, listen, we got a guy who's talking about his new book, The True Founder. We got somebody who started, grown, and scaled a company to, what, should I say 8 figures? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I said out of 100 top companies coming out of Canada, he was ranked 14th. You know what I'm saying? And I'm excited to have him on the show. Marc Lafleur.
Hey man, excited to be back.
Because
that's the
back
thing,
on the show.
Whole different lifetime ago. It was only 2 years ago, but way different position, way different timeline. That was pre-sale, the company, different status. Yeah, definitely.
Most definitely, man. Welcome back, bro.
Excited to be here.
How you doing?
Happy to be back.
Lafleur's, you guys. I used to call you back in the time.
Yes, sir, man. So the last time we chat, you know, we had a little bit of conversation around Dragon's Den. And if you haven't listened to it, we'll link that first conversation down below. So go listen to that, you know. And, you know, getting investment from Michelle Romano and, you know, growing the company out. So from that point to where we are now, the company has been sold, you know, and it's been quite a process. You're talking to us a little bit about it, about the process of becoming acquired, right? We could start with selling the business. What was the process of getting acquired? Because one thing you just mentioned slightly to us was the due diligence that happens. Yeah. Can you break that down?
Yeah, for sure. So quick recap. So TruLocal, we started it, I guess it would have been February 2016.
Yeah.
And it originally was just supposed to be a better alternative to the company that we worked for at the time. And I did door-to-door meat sales. So literally would go out in the freezing cold, door-to-door, try to offer up meat and be like, hey, do you want to buy a year's worth of meat? And the business had an amazing product, but it had a horrible business model. No website, no branding. Everything had to be, you know, direct sales, face-to-face. So the idea for TruLocal was like, why don't we just take this and bring it online? You know, there is best practice everywhere on how to run an e-com store, on how to use e-com as a business model. Why don't we just take meat, put it online? That was the original sort of plan.
Let me ask you something. Did you pitch that company that idea?
Absolutely.
And what did they say?
Absolutely. They said it would never work.
Is it because meat is not like a sellable product online?
Their thing, my opinion, is that they had been running the business the same way for about 14 years. So, and it worked, you know, there was nothing wrong with that. I think though that when you look at the technology that was coming out, when you look at the new generation and the way people were shopping, the difference between running the same model from what it would have been 2000, I don't know, yeah, I guess like what, yeah, from 2000 to 2015, you probably could get away with not innovating and keeping the model the same, and the company was growing and it was profitable. But that like 2012 to 2020 range, like that was paid advertising e-com. That was like the time where you needed to be doubling down on that. And if you only had like a sort of a single channel business model, which for them it was go to someone's house, sell them a year's worth of meat, you're going to start getting muscled out by alternatives that were either cheaper, faster, more convenient, or better quality. So that to me was something that was obvious. And I went to them to say, hey, listen, you know, why don't we try to take this whole thing online? Now, they weren't opposed to taking it online, but what they hated was they had gotten so used to selling a bulk package. They loved the idea of going into a house and convincing someone to buy a year's worth of product so they could deliver it once. once again, it made a lot of sense from a business perspective. But in that 2012 sort of range, you start getting more of, you got to give the consumer what they want. It's not going to fly just because you want to sell a year's worth of meat. Maybe they don't want to do that. So where we were starting to butt heads was that I was suggesting we needed to do monthly packages. So we need to do something monthly. We don't need to lock people in. And e-com as a business model is a perfect avenue for that. And that was where they're like, that's just never going to work. People will not buy a month's worth of meat. You got to get them locked into a year. That's the only way you make money. And that was kind of the beginning of the end. And pretty much it would have been in January. So just along this time, went home for the holidays and sent off an email saying, hey, look, I need to come talk to you guys. Let's have this conversation. And went and told them what we were doing. I told them point blank, we didn't hide anything. I'm like, look, like for these reasons, I think that we can go do this better this way. And we're going to go do that. I just want to be transparent with you guys. I'm not doing it against you. I'm doing it for us. And that was where it all started.
What was their reaction?
I think at first, obviously frustrated, but I think they were very dismissive. Like it was more like it's not real. It's kind of like, hey, you're gonna go fail anyway. Which I always say, there are so many lessons that I've learned, and one of them, once again, is that at the time in the company, like we were definitely considered, like we were the young shots, right? Like we were the ones that kind of had the ideas and all this type of stuff. I would have doubled down on us then, just because I would have been like, shit, if they don't do it with us, they're gonna go do it somewhere else. But I think that old school mentality was very, oh sure, fine, we're annoyed that you're leaving and this is annoying, but go do it, you're gonna fail anyway. And I always joke about it now, but now we're significantly bigger than they are, and we became their biggest competitors in like a year and a half. So it's wild. And what I learned from that, though, ironically, was that if you ever have an employee that is dead set that they have a great way of doing something to the point where they're willing to sacrifice their security by leaving to go start their own thing, and they're trying to bring you that idea, invest in that. Absolutely. Give them a shot. If they believe so wholeheartedly that they can do this thing and they're willing to leave you to go do it, why the hell would you not give this person a chance? Because next thing you know, they become a competitor.
They didn't believe in you.
Didn't believe in us. Which is okay. I like that position, though,
So let's
to be
keep it
honest.
a buck. That put a battery in your back.
Of course. All of the motivation I've ever had up until the age of 30 has been from people that did not believe that I could do anything. All the way from back in high school, I was massively disruptive in high school, like not the good type of disruptive. I was like a complete and total, it was bad. I was failing on grade 9 and 10. I had no friends, no relationship with my teachers, in and out of detention all the time. And by the time late grade 10 came around, everyone had written me off. Like I was never going to graduate high school. Everyone thought I was an idiot. Like no one thought I could ever amount to anything.
And everything like that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that to this day is one of the strongest sources of fuel I've ever had. And now I kind of collect people that count me out. Like I kind of get to a point where I'm like, sweet, I'm going to remember what you said. I'm going to use that. It's going to push me forward. And people always say like, you shouldn't use that. It's negative fuel. I'm like, yeah, but it burns real hot. It burns real hot. And where my life is at now, I always say I would never change a thing. So it's, there might be different ways to go about it, but having people count you out and bet against you, like, don't get mad, like use that as fuel.
I love that. Honestly, I relate to that so much because in high school, like I failed out a lot of classes. I failed biology. Take this in. I failed biology and went to summer school and got an 89.
Yeah.
That means that's a teacher fault, not a student fault. If you're getting 89 in summer school, that means you actually probably could have passed in high school. Anyways, the reason why I say that is because a lot of times teachers fail us. And that same teacher, I had a guidance counselor that was working with me because I was like a bad kid. So they're trying to, talk to me, try to get me right. And she talked to me and said, Alex, he probably won't even graduate. He's probably not even going to do anything with his life.
Mm-hmm.
Now look, feel me? But yeah.
100%. I'm in your ears now. You're listening to this now.
So what was the worst trouble you got into in high school?
Oh man, like honestly, everything. Like I fighting, like swearing at teachers. I stole a banner once. Yeah, they had this like radio dance, like kind of like a Much Music dance at the school, and they had this giant banner, and I just thought it was awesome, so I just took it and like ran down the street with it. But it was like it took 2 people, so it wasn't just me alone. But we did that, and then of course got ratted out like the next day. They're just skipping class all the time. And I do gotta always asterisk this because to your same point, I realized I found football really changed my life at the time. And I realized that I was never going to be able to play football past high school if I didn't get into university, because Canada doesn't have anything really outside of university football. Exactly. It's not like I can go to some random college and play ball. I got to get into university. And that like changed my whole life, because it was like, holy shit, the thing that I want most in the world, I need to become a good student and get good grades to make it happen. So to your point, you know, I failed most of my classes by grade 10, but by grade, I went back for a victory lap. I was an Ontario scholar, so like 91% average. So same thing, right? It was kind of like finding something that actually motivates you enough to apply yourself the most. And I think that that's the issue with high schools and kids in school, is that these kids aren't dumb, and these kids are probably, they are way smarter than teachers and parents give them credit for. It's they don't give a shit about civics and careers. Yeah. Like they don't care about finding the Pythagorean theorem to find the hypotenuse of a triangle. Like the things, man, exactly. They don't care about that. So what ends up happening is you don't get someone's full effort. Mm-hmm. So I always say, before you write someone off, like ask them what they're into. Like, what do you like to do? Then go show me that you're the best at that, or that you can kill that. You're a gamer? Okay, cool. You don't like school and you're gonna, you know, screw around in class and do all this stuff. I know this doesn't work in the current curriculum or education system, but like even as a guidance counselor, just to see like, does this kid have something? Fine, what's your game? Okay, this is your game. Go show me a high score. Go win a tournament. Go do something. But show me that you got it. When you care about something, go show me that you got it. And I would hire people like that any day of the week. It's like, you know, what, you don't fit well in this system of things that we're trying to teach you. Okay, I'm not going to write you off. But what I will say is that, fine, then you tell me what you are good at and go show me how you're amazing at it and that you've put in the time in. So, you know, that helped with ball. But yeah, I was in all sorts of trouble all the time. It was touch and go. And I grew up with my mom, and my mom, you know, such an angel, and I'm only who I am today because of her. But the way that she raised me was always, I'm going to let you do whatever the hell you want to do, but you are going to deal with the repercussions of it. Like, that's what it's going to be. So it's not going to be this thing where it's like, I'm going to ground you, or I'm going to do this type of stuff. You know, you do what you want. I have respect. And it was all about trust. So as long as you tell me, do what you want. But yeah, if you get in shit, like, you got yourself in shit. So I feel like I matured a little earlier than most, just because I had that freedom. My mom trusted me that way. And yeah, I just led into the university. So where I was going was that I do got to give credit, because even though I was a little shithead in high school, and that's what made teachers obviously hate me for obvious reasons, when they saw that I was turning things around, my old high school, so I grew up in Cornwall, and Holy Trinity, that school, those teachers, they rallied behind me, man. Like, they wanted to see me succeed. And a lot of them, like at least 3, have had an impact on my life that if they weren't that type of way and didn't do certain things, I wouldn't have made that out of high school. So a lot of it is, you know, it's what you put out into the world, right? Like, are you going to put yourself forward, you know, and people will gravitate towards that, and people will jump on. Now, that's like a unique scenario. There was way more people being like, this kid's still an idiot, and he's definitely not going to play ball, and he's still going to fail out. But it is always good to shout out the people that did believe in you at the same time.
Yeah. How is it like, just the mindset shift, right? Because you're starting grade 9, 10, failing everything, and to have like the confidence to actually believe you can do it, and then get to the 91 percentile. Mm-hmm. What things were you doing every single day just to get your mindset to the next level and sustain that, right? Because you can get motivated really quick, but to sustain it, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, you just nailed like 3 of the things I love to talk about most. So, okay, the but I want to get to the sustaining it after.
Sustaining, yeah.
The thing for me was that once again, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, and anything I ever wanted, I had to find a way to get it myself. So I kind of gotten used to being told no. That was typically the default answer for anything I ever wanted, from, you know, let's get candy at the corner store, to, hey, can you let me into this class, or let me play on it got to a point in high school where they wouldn't let me play on any teams. Like, so I had to ask. So I'm like, okay, so I'm used to being told no. I got to convince them otherwise. So what ended up happening was that I already had this belief that anything I ever wanted, I could go after and get. And whether that's just the way I was raised, I don't know, but it's just something I've had inside of me. And then when you've already got that mentality, the wins and losses in your life, now they're just either increasing or decreasing your confidence in the fact that you think you can get anything you want. So where I'm going with this is that in grade 9 and 10, there was nothing I wanted. I didn't give a shit. I wanted to go home. I wanted to play video games. I wanted to drink 2-liter bottles of Coke every night. You know, that was just life. I didn't have anything that I wanted to apply myself towards. But when I found football, I fell in love with football. And that was around summer of grade 10. And it was in the summer of grade 10 that I realized, if I ever wanted to keep playing football, I had to go to university. So now I've got this thing that I love that I will do anything for. And the barrier is, oh shit, academics. Like I got to get into university. Like how am I going to do that? Answer is simple. It doesn't mean it's easy, but okay, well, I need to get in university. Okay, well, how do I get in university? I got to turn my grades around. Okay, well, how to turn my grades around? I'm going to have to work my ass off to learn the material because I wasn't going to class. It wasn't like, I'm in no way shaped like this like genius savant who was like, oh, now I'm going to get a 91. So I'm just going to start to be smart.
Yeah.
No, I had to work my ass off to study and memorize all this stuff, but that's what it was. And it was this thing where football at the time became my purpose. It was this thing, and I always talk about purpose where it's like, how do you describe purpose? People think purpose is goals or they think it's a vision, and a purpose isn't that, because the difference in my opinion is that a purpose is a feeling. Like it's very difficult to articulate your purpose, but it's something you feel. It's something you're drawn towards. Like you wake up and even when you're not thinking about it, that tug is still there. That is your purpose. And a purpose can be bigger, it can be small, it could be shorter, it could be long, but it's the biggest thing. It's the reason that you're existing. And for me, that was football. And then all of the things that I had worked backwards for, okay, I got to get fit, which is very difficult because I was overweight, was non-athletic, and I need to learn the course material so I can get this 91% average. What ended up happening is those things just started becoming default. Like I would just do the things I needed to do to get to those goals because getting to those goals would get me to my purpose. So so just to replay that, the purpose is giving me this motivation to do the things that I need to do to achieve said purpose. So, okay, now I got to study every night because I got to get caught up. And of course, it sucks. I don't want to do it, but I knew that this is what I needed to do to get my grades up so I could go achieve my purpose. So purpose to me is really what gives you that long lasting motivation, how you sustain it, because you can find motivation in a lot of different ways. Yeah. But to have motivation over a long period of time is very difficult. And to me, the only thing that I've ever found in life that has given me motivation for 5+ years or whatever it takes to achieve whatever goal you're trying to do or build a business, when you're in year 3 and you've exhausted all of the other forms of motivation, like the pep talks and this and that, and you wake up and your business is on fire and people are leaving or there's a recession or there's a pandemic, and you wake up and all you want to do is go right back to bed, purpose is going to be what is like, it's like, okay, just go do the thing. You got to go do it. So that's kind of like tying it all in there. But ironically, that's what the book is about too. So kind of going through that story, because football was the first purpose I ever had. It was, I need to play football. Didn't say I need to be good. I just like, I need to go play football in university. And I did that. And looking back on it, I realized that that really is what got me to do all the shit that I didn't want to do. I don't want to go to the gym every day. It just sucks. Like, at the end of the day, like now, 25 plus, it's awesome. You want to be fit. You want to go to the gym. It's a healthy lifestyle. But like as a kid, you're already full of energy. You don't necessarily want to be going to the gym, but you drag your ass there because that's what's going to make you more competitive in ball. Do these assignments. I hate these assignments and I don't like the course, but I don't have a choice. This barrier in front of me is get good grades so you can get in university. And, if I don't do what I need to do, then I'm not going to achieve my purpose and my goal. So that was kind of what, from a mindset perspective, really hit me hard when I was like grade 9 and 10, total shithead, flipped the switch over the summer. I had something I wanted. Yeah. And
And how does that, so football is your purpose. You get to uni, football's purpose finishes. Yeah. Now you got to readjust your purpose.
Oh, yeah.
How do you get that new purpose to pursue entrepreneurship, and what triggered you to enter that space?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. So I think that, a couple things on that. First of all, when people think about finding a purpose, this whole people joke about a midlife crisis. Now it's like an early life crisis. People at 20 years old are losing their minds because they're like, oh my God, what am I doing with life? And I think the issue is that people are trying to find their life's purpose. Now, some people are very fortunate. Some people found their life's purpose at an early age. Look at professional, look at LeBron. You know what I mean? Like, when did this guy know that his purpose was basketball? Very early on.
12.
Yeah. And then he is able to cater his entire life towards the thing that he knows is his purpose. But that's an outlier. You go look at Drake.
Mr. Beast.
Exactly. There are people that are very, very fortunate to have found their purpose at a young age, but that is not the norm. So people get to the age of 20, they don't know what the hell they want to do, as they shouldn't. Like, how are you going to ask a kid at 20 years old what he wants to do for the rest of his life? It doesn't make any sense. Like, the kid's barely been alive. His brain's not even done being developed. And you put this ridiculous pressure on, figure out your life's goal or your life's purpose. I don't know why, but the football part of it was a big thing, but I realized unless I'm ever going to be blessed one day and figure out what my life's purpose is, which I don't know yet, go with like bite-sized purpose, like a purpose that is like a bite size. Like this is what I care about the most right now at this point in time, and I'm going to chase after that. And once I get that, full recalibration. Take all preconceived notions I had before, get rid of them, reevaluate life from the perspective of now I've achieved this purpose, what I want to do next. So once again, at the time, I didn't know any of this stuff. It's easy to look back and be like, oh, I did learn this. But when I made the football team, exactly, like you make the team, everything's great, you know, played a few years. And then once that was gone, it was like chaos again, circling, you know, because I'm a very big believer that if you're not chasing something, you're just waiting for chaos to bite you in the ass.
Yes.
Like if you're not moving forward, you're running in circles. And that's when like, man, that's when things come and get you, you know? So I was just doing that. You know, my grades were, I was still getting shit grades, but now I was failing again, all this type of stuff because it didn't matter. And at the time, I didn't understand the relationship between purpose. So I just was wandering around purposefully, like, you know, just having fun in university. And then I think we talked about it on the last podcast, the whole kind of origin story of Tell and all this, but I got hit with this like this financial drive. I think I was on my way out of university and I was like, oh shit, like I got no money. You know what I mean? Like, we never had money growing up. So I was like, oh damn, like this sucks. Like I want to go do fun things. And then just like this combination of, you know, inputs from people that I respected, listening to, you know, whatever content was out there that would kind of start pushing me in the business direction, and this own sort of need to, you know, build and all this type of stuff, and this fear of like a normal life, like this fear of a 9-to-5. I always have this fear, you know, I just got married and, you know, I've been with my wife now for 10 years and we met in university, and I always joke because I had to go work in a different town. And I remember being like, damn, this would suck. Imagine if your boss told you to go work on this side of the country and my boss told me to go work on that side of the country. Shit, we don't have any control. I don't want to go ask a boss for 2 weeks vacation and do all this stuff. And I was like, freedom's important to me. So all of this stuff went into the crock pot that then started me feeling something. I was like, I'm getting this tug. I'm getting this tug. Something. I'm getting that feeling again when I wanted to go play football. It was like I started waking up being like, I need to chase this. Like I need to. So to your point, and to this whole idea of finding a new purpose, I don't think it's something you can conceptualize. It's something that happens, that you feel, and that's why it's so powerful. If you conceptualize it, it can come and go. But then when it's a feeling, you can't fight what's going on inside, right? You can't. And people know this. It's the people who are sitting at the jobs they don't want to sit at, and they have this yearning for something else. They know the feeling. The people that are in the middle of the trenches building out or chasing a dream, and when everyone's telling them to quit and they know they shouldn't, that's the feeling. That's the type of thing. You can't conceptualize that. So that's what ended up happening. I started getting this drive for entrepreneurship and business, and I knew nothing about it. Like, once again, I was a kid that came from school, just realized how to be decent at academics, let alone, oh wait, I can go start my own company and start my own business. So that's what happened. And, you know, like I was saying with the Tell story and the Dash Task story, I really wanted to, about a year into me getting this tug towards wanting to be an entrepreneur, I started putting it together where it's like, actually, I think what I want to do is build a company and sell it. Like, I think that's the way for me to, you know, become a millionaire by 30. Like, that's the path that I think that my skill sets lend the best to. And that's what we started.
And at that time too, right? You're seeing like all these companies like Snapchat, all these apps, like they get funding like 50 million, and they sell for $1 billion. Instagram selling to $1 billion to Facebook.
Exactly.
That must have had an influence, because I remember like that time, 2010 to 2012, a lot of these acquisitions were happening, and everybody, like the tech bubble, was just exploding right then and there.
Well, that's exactly. So I'll go through it quick, but the first time I realized that like business was the way I was going to make money was when I heard that Snapchat turned down Facebook for $3 billion. Now, as someone who doesn't know business, I don't know that these apps are a business. I think these apps are just shitty toys. I didn't like Snapchat at the time either. I'm just like, okay, these apps, you know, you can, I remember MySpace. Oh, you know, MySpace, I can do that on my own. So I think an app is just like that. So I'm like, yo, $3 billion?
He's turning it down.
Yeah.
He's turning it down.
Once again, as a kid, I don't even think I actually understood what $1 billion was. Like, I thought $1 million, if you had $1 million, this is just like the most ridiculous amount of money in the world. So that was definitely, usually these, you know, purposes in life or these things that you want to chase after, they kind of slowly grow and build. But I can definitely say that was one very acute, like, oh shit, you gotta start looking at this. But yeah, so the idea was, Snapchat turned down $3 billion offer from Facebook. And then immediately, I think it was like that week where I was like, okay, we're building an app. Like that's what started all of it. And then TruLocal's acquisition, which I know was originally the first question, by the way, we went on a tangent, but TruLocal's acquisition was a function of that dream, that input. 2 failed startups along the way led to, the acquisition in 2020. So that's kind of how all of it came full circle. And also it's a lot of the what got us through TruLocal was that it became the purpose. Like my purpose was to sell a company before the age of 30, and that's where it's at. And that's actually, once again, a big part of the book. It's talking about how in the early days you got to find this purpose, because all the tips and tricks and strategies that I talk about in the book, they're great, but if you don't have something that will keep you going forward when you're in your darkest moment, you're just going to give up. And that's why most founders fail, is they give up, right? So there's a lot of that going on in it.
No, that's huge. You dropped a lot of gems in that. One thing I want to add on to that is acceptance as well.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I found myself being challenged with consistently, is not feeling accepted throughout a lot of those moments when you're in high school, when you're in college, not feeling accepted by your purpose as well. I think is a huge element that I had to really accept. But yeah, and finding that within my purpose and within the people that contribute to that really helped me come forward with what I'm doing and propel myself to where I am,
I do, for sure. I think one thing I would say to that is I would almost use that, because I don't feel the same way now, but I did feel that way, because acceptance and people counting you out kind of go hand in hand, right?
Yes.
But now I look at it where I do use it the other way around. I'm like, I'm never going to be accepted no matter where I go. And even at this point in time, there's just something about me. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I kind of just march to the beat of my own drum. And whether it is a good thing or a bad thing, I've just noticed that typically whatever sort of like social, I don't mean like friends and family or anything, but I mean like, let's say it's VCs, let's say it's investors, let's say it's the media, let's say whatever, is just, I always come off a different type of way, you know what I mean? And I'm always on the outside. And that used to piss me off, actually, to the point where the idea of another part of TruLocal was that I couldn't raise any money for my first 2 businesses. Now, look, that's not being unfair. It's that I didn't know anything about business. My business plan deck was like a 1-pager, and it said, give me money and I'll like build a business, right? So that made sense as to not raising. But I remember being like, I'm done with this shit. Like, I'm tired of trying to be accepted. Don't accept me, no problem. I'm gonna do my own thing.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna go kill it. I'm gonna go crush it. And then you guys can come to me.
Exactly.
And that's how it's gonna work. And I think that made life a lot easier. And definitely, especially now after the acquisition, like I can do that. Like I can work with the people I want to work with. I can invest in the projects I want to invest in. I don't need anybody else's money or approval. And I think that should be a big like goal for people that are in business, is that if you make it, not only do you get the finance and not only do you get the status and all this type of stuff, but now you actually have a platform to create your own sort of world. And now people are going to start coming towards that.
Towards you. Yeah. Exactly. Acceptance is a hell of a drug, man.
Very true.
You want to be accepted by your parents, your social circle, and that can lead you into specific ways. So you got to like find ways to navigate around that, and like find purpose as the driver, like you're saying, to make you be able to be steadfast through it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, Mark. Like, you sold your bit. Like, from what you're saying, your goal was to sell your business, and a lot of founders, they have a purpose to build a legacy business, meaning like they are 30, 40, 50. Their son, their daughters take over. Why wasn't your purpose to build a legacy business which you can grow like an Amazon or something like that, but it's just to sell it and then move on from it?
Yeah.
What was the difference when you're looking at that?
Yeah, I had no money growing up. So to me, a check was a check, and that was the big driver. Like, I wanted to be a millionaire by 30, and so I looked at it okay, so there's a couple things on that. First of all, I think that you shouldn't re-compromise with yourself when you're about to get everything you want, because now you feel in a more comfortable position. So what I mean by that is that if you got a number in your head, okay, and you get to that number, typically these intrusive thoughts start coming in, and you're about to get everything you've ever wanted. The deal you made with yourself, this is what I want. You, right before it's about to go down, you're now starting to be like, well, maybe I could get more. Maybe I could be greedy. Maybe I could do that. All these different things. And I've seen a lot of deals fall through because of that. For me, I knew that the purpose that I was out was I wanted to sell my company before the age of 30 so I could be a millionaire before the age of 30. I feel like if I would have, and I do believe in recalibrating of purpose and goals and all of this, but for me, particularly in this situation, if I had waited till like when things were rocking and rolling with TruLocal, I don't think we would have had the same ending had I then started being like, well, you know what, maybe I want to do a legacy company. Maybe I want to change this giant map that I've kind of put down and have been carving towards. Maybe I want to move out the meter stick a little bit. I feel like I would have been cheating myself because that's not what I signed on for at the time, right? So where I'm going with this is that for me, it was definitely financial. And then the thing now is looking back on it, the thing that I want to do moving forward, that I've got this thing taken care of, the whole Kanye line I was saying, right? Not having money, or having money isn't everything, but not having it is. Now that I can think about life from a non-scarce mindset, right? Because when you have no money and you've got no backing, like I can't go back and live at home. Like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't in the cards like that. I didn't even have that as a safety net, right? Like, you know, if your business goes under, you're going to go bankrupt. You've brought your friends, families involved. You've brought on investors. You've done all this stuff. I feel like the financial aspect of that becomes very, very, very important. When you take that out of the equation and now finances aren't a worry, you realize that money isn't everything after you get there. But you can't tell that to someone who doesn't have it. If someone doesn't have financial resources, you can't tell them money's not important, because what they're thinking about today at worst is, shit, where am I going to eat? Or where am I going to sleep? Maybe most people are thinking about a little bit more long-term. Okay, well, I got to get some money together to pay rent. Or maybe they're like, okay, I want to take this course. I got to pay money to take this course. It's all this function of, I need to earn enough to do this next thing, right? Well, how can you think 15 years out when you can't even think a month out? It's very difficult. So for me, you know, and now looking into it, I don't have to worry about that anymore. Like, there's a situation now where I can start thinking much more long-term and start thinking more about the idea of a legacy company and something that I want to build that I actually want and care about, right? So I think that was it for me, is that coming from no money and never even, like, even if I just had $1 million, like, I would have been like, I'm king of the world. Like, this is the best thing ever. And nowadays, especially with inflation, $1 million ain't what it used to be, right? So just coming from that world, holes in your shoes, not having it, it was very important for me to get it so that I could then do what I was saying before. Once again, when you achieve that purpose, recalibrate. After you've hit it, recalibrate. Okay, now what matters to me? When I think about the first principles that went into my original purpose of selling a company, it was financial, it was freedom, it was all these things. Well, now what is my purpose when I take those things out of the equation? You're going to index higher on things that matter. You know, long-term, you want to leave a legacy, you want to work with amazing people, you want to solve a bigger problem. All of that typically will be opposed or in conflict with, I want to make money. So if you try to do all of those things, you might do none of them well. If you're trying to change the world, work with amazing people, and do something great, but you also equally want to make money and be financially free, that could be at odds with itself. If you can remove some of those baser needs and just zero in on, you know, let's just say build great company, work with great people, change the world, you're going to be better off. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Ironically, I wouldn't say that I have a strict, crazy purpose that I'm chasing after right now. I was on a 2-year deal with the company after it sold to help, you know, facilitate the transition. And that's what I've been doing. There's a new CEO in place, absolutely killing it. And I've just been enjoying, you know,
Life.
just like enjoying taking things a little bit slower, like looking things through a different lens. It's the first time, it's only been 2 years. I've lived 2 years of my life with a new lens. So I'm just trying to kind of take all of it in and figure out what's important and what's next. But I will say one thing that definitely, to the same point of, like, you look at LeBron and it's like, damn, I wish I had a purpose that early on so I could have just chased right after that. I give a huge pat on the back, and I wish I was one of the founders that had this vision of, I want to build a company as a legacy. Like, I want it to be there for sure. That's a way better way to do things in general. I just think I took a different path and it's a different journey, but now I'm very into that. Like, I think the next thing that I want to focus on, I want to look at minimum 10-year horizon. I want it to be bigger. I think that one of the big issues with the Canadian founders is really, it's always built to sell. I'm one of them. And you're typically looking at like a 5-year time frame, but you can only build something so big in 5 years, right? The difference in size from what you could build in 5 years and 10 years it's exponential. But most people are thinking about that 5 year because they want that exit. So it's just, you know, a lot of different strokes.
Now let's talk about that lens you're seeing life through now. Could you break that down a little bit more?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's great. Like, so we sold, it's awesome, right? We sold TruLocal, $16.7 million. It's life changing. The whole thing was amazing. And now the lens is, when I was, well, first of all, the scarcity, right? So, you do clutter your mind a lot with just, financial constraints. You want to go out with the friends. I don't want to spend money at the bar. Okay, well, you want to go out for dinner. Do I really want to go out for dinner? Okay, I could go have a meeting somewhere with a potential investor. Flights are kind of expensive. It's kind of how it is. Like, I could make better content if I had a better camera. Shit's expensive. So ironically, it holds you back from some of those things. So there's that aspect of it where I feel like I look at life in less scarcity. Now it's more just like, what do you do when you could do anything, which is its own challenge in of itself that we could talk about. But so there's that aspect of it. And then the other one is looking through those. I had something in my head that I was going to go on to, but it's the aspect of when you're in it, you miss out on a lot of deals. Right. So when you're building your company, once again, you have all of these sort of distractions that you'll be building in the trenches, grinding it out, and you watch your buddy who starts another business that's taking off, and you're like, shit, I should have gone to do that. Or maybe, of course, as a founder, everyone tries to recruit you, right? So you're getting these job offers, come build this with me, and you're like, damn, I wish I could go do that. Or you're just being pitched deals. You see founders coming up that you want to invest in, or there's things that you're missing out on. And I was always really upset about that. Like, there was a lot of times where I was like, this is not worth it because I'm missing out on all this opportunity cost. And one thing that I realized by never being able to participate in these deals was that there's always another deal. Always. There's an endless supply of deals out there, and you do not need to rush into every single deal that you see. And that's difficult to tell someone when they are investing in deals and they have the means to do it. But when you had to watch all of it go by, the only way to almost not fall for that trap is to not be able to do it. So when I came out the other side, one of the most beautiful things was that I was never in a rush for a deal, because I already learned, I'd gotten used to, deals are going to come. They're going to keep on coming, and I don't need to jump in anything I don't want to. So that's another lens to look at. It's kind of like, case in point, what do you do when you can do anything? That becomes way more important, like how you spend your time. For me, it's been very important with who I spend my time with, because now I don't have to spend time with people that take my energy or don't give me energy. Like, I want to be around people that motivate me and I motivate them. And that's the point of life, right? Like, in my opinion, like, be around people, put them on, they put you on, you go kill it together. Like, I love that. So there's that side of it, tons of travel everywhere all the time. Love it. And that's a freedom, especially now with remote work. That's always great. Obviously, race cars. It's always a fun one.
Should we get into it real quick?
Yeah. I want to speak more about the deal first for our entrepreneur listeners, right?
Yeah, let's get into it.
16.8 million. Yeah. From Emerge. So Emerge is like they serve niche e-commerce brands, correct?
Yeah. So Emerge is pretty much putting together a portfolio of kick-ass e-com brands. So niche industry leaders in their space. The most exciting ones being, BattleBox. So they have BattleBox out of the US. They've got Wholesale Pets. So kind of focusing on that area. And that's their way. And the idea is that by bringing all of these brands under one banner, what'll happen is they can just get more economies of scale, right? They can provide better services together than these companies would be providing alone.
Yeah, I'm curious, with the acquisition, like, for instance, I know with Bevel being acquired by, I think it was Procter & Gamble, if I'm not mistaken, they now have the opportunity to go into a lot more retailers, right, and have a greater distribution. Was that the kind of play that you were looking for, or was it like a more strategic play? And I'd love to get more insight into what led you to this acquisition versus any others.
Yeah, so we ran a full process. So we had probably three serious people that we were dealing with, and I would say there's probably a fourth in there, and it was the complete spectrum of private equity through to strategics, a name that people would know right off the bat, like just one of the large food companies in Canada. And the thing that was most important to me, once again, I'm very principle based, and I think people should read Principles by Ray Dalio if they haven't, but that, as a founder, that's a great book. Because what was most important to me, I wanted to sell the company. I knew that that's not, like, I have to make sure that the team is going to be taken care of. Because if I'm going to be leaving, then TruLocal is not like my baby. TruLocal is our baby. Like the team that built TruLocal is what made TruLocal special. So being completely honest, what was most important to me was, okay, if we do an acquisition, what is going to happen with the team? Do you guys have this like suite of executives that you're just going to airdrop and change everything up? And that was where most of the conversations went. And one of them actually offered us more than Emerge did, but they were very explicit where it's like, yeah, no, we have a way of running things. We're going to assimilate this into our existing brand. And we're going to, we'll keep some of them around, but we're definitely going to go through and carve out the people that we don't think have a fit. Yeah, in the early days. And this is like right at the time when like the markets were great. There's no reason to be looking at any layoffs or cutting teams sizes at all. So that was a huge part of it. Like that was the most important thing that I was looking at. And Emerge is very founder friendly. That was a great thing. They're not a team of operators. They're investors, right, with experience. And the idea for them was, okay, we'll make these acquisitions, but we want to maintain the team in place. So it was a perfect pairing in that sense.
So let's get to the number. It's 16.8. It's a very like definite number.
Yeah.
Break that down. Was it stock? Was it part of it cash too? How does that
Yeah, it was about 60% cash and then 40% stock. And the reason it was 16.8 was because of the stock price at the time. So when the announcement was made, the stock price at the time made it. I think, if I remember correct, I can't believe I don't remember this off the top of my head, but I think it was actually 16 million was the price, but with the stock where it was at the time, it was 16.8 and they had to report it that way.
Got you. So when that happens, like, do you also have to go through a process with your investors as well too? Like, because you're the CEO, but do they also have a decision in actually deciding, hey, Mark, let's not sell. I think we should give it another year, because there's a lot of ears in your head as a founder, right? Walk us through that stage of like when you're selling and all the other people who are influencing that decision, and how do you arrive at that decision of like, okay, maybe we can wait this long, or maybe we should do it now?
Yeah. So this is once again like advice for founders. I was blessed. I didn't have a lot of people in my ear. We maintained most of the equity. Between founders like me and Greg, we had about 70% of the equity. So that was not by design. It was a amazing outcome of pretty much failed pitch attempt after failed pitch attempt after failed pitch attempt. What you're describing is what most people deal with. They've got partners in their ear, they've got investors in their ear, and in most cases, they've got investors steering the ship, deciding whether or not they can sell. So with us in TruLocal, we built the company to $20 million and we only raised $940,000 in funding throughout the entire time, which for food, like a D2C food company, that's low on the funding spectrum. So it wasn't for a lack of trying. We just kept getting turned down. It's like, no, we don't like the space. We don't think you can make it. We don't think X, Y, Z. And we got term sheets back, but the ones that did come back with term sheets, the terms are so heavy handed. So liquidation preferences, preferred shares, board seats, all of this stuff. And in a quick nutshell, we can dive into it more if you want, but the investment thesis on a VC is very much, 1 out of 10 is going to be the winner. They have to return X, Y, Z to their fund. So if they've got a fund of, let's say $500 million, not only do they not give a shit about investing $1 million in a company, they are going to need to see not a 1 or 2 or 3x return. They need to see a 10x return because they've got all these failures that are going to pretty much just lose cash on. So, we were really lucky where my partner, Greg, had always trusted me, and I always give him a huge shout out for this, but he'd always let me steer the ship. Like there was never any issues. After the first year, it was like, okay, we know our roles. Our existing investors, they were angels and they were the best people I could ever imagine. Like they were never in our ear. They were letting us run the company the way we saw fit, and it worked out for them.
Wow.
But we had about, I think maybe 7 angel investors that came in, and of course they invested in each round. And they were happy just to see an exit, of course, especially with the way the market was. So I got lucky there too. So really it was actually fully at my discretion on how we were going to sell, when we were going to sell, what we were going to do. But I wish I could say that was by design. Like I had this sort of poise and epiphany as a founder that like, okay, maintain control, maintain equity. But no, it was just that it was failure after failure after failure that led us into this position that made the deal so much easier to get through. So yeah, that was just very fortunate.
That's interesting that you kept getting like rejected, or not even rejected, just turned down, because you actually have experience in it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times entrepreneurs are like, oh, well, this is my idea. Maybe I'm a, let's say, engineer at Google, but I want to make something for I don't know, photography, right? And they're like, you ain't got no experience in photography, but you're an engineer at Google, I'm gonna fund you. Whereas you actually have years working for a meat company, and you're like, all right, I'm starting a meat company. I have years in a meat company, and they aren't seeing it, but I'm seeing it. So like, it feels like it's a more obvious choice. Yet, what do you think was the hump a lot of people weren't being able to get over?
For sure. Yeah, like I was always confused that we couldn't get funding. Looking back on it now, I think we were actually 1 year too late. I think that because we were about a year behind Chef's Plate. So Chef's Plate was sort of like Canada's darling child for D2C food, right? And I think at the time it was called B2C, right? So like business to consumer.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
B2C
now it's
was the thing before. Now it's D2C.
exactly. So they had raised, I think in total, like $10 million, and maybe we're doing $50 million in revenue. I'm totally pulling these numbers out of my ass, so fact check it. But they were the ones that were paving the way in Canada off the coattails of companies like Blue Apron in the US that at their peak were in the multi-billion-dollar valuation. But so a lot of the VCs had already diversified into D2C food, right? At the time, once again, about a year too late. And also there were starting to see some cracks in the armor of the meal kit industry. So insanely high acquisition cost, brutal retention, and it started spooking the D2C VC investors. Now, I felt like we were still okay because and to this day, you can always go look online, go look at it. The number one thing that we've always done on TruLocal is that we've had a bespoke customer experience. Like when you come to TruLocal, you're getting that white glove service. And once again, that's a huge testament to the team. So when you look at our retention numbers, like these aren't just like random bullshit. Oh, I'm going to skew this, skew that. Take our numbers for retention and chop them up any way you want in however any other company is calculating their churn or whatever it might be. And we were just like best in class. So our average order values were higher than the industry average. The amount of boxes that people would order in a year was higher, and the lifetime value of our customers were through the roof. So I thought that we had enough to go and raise based on that. But you know the way VCs are, they're birds of a feather. If those VCs are spooked, these VCs are spooked. So everyone was kind of on the sidelines waiting to get into the direct, the food business.
Take a quick break. Yep. I'll be right back. So one thing that you just mentioned is the standard that your team had when it comes to having that white glove service, right? And I was listening to a lot of entrepreneur podcasts and talking to entrepreneurs throughout our show. I'm noticing a consistent trend of setting a specific standard and being somewhat of a tyrant to make sure that gets set. Can you break that down? Like what standards did you set?
Yeah, for sure. So for us, and I'll dive deep on this with anybody on any time, because I think the narrative out there right now is that if you have a shitty business, the thing that you're marketing is, oh, we have great customer service. Like if you think about it, every website you go to, we got the best customer service, but then you go check the reviews or you look at the retention, it doesn't match up. So when I say that customer service, aka we call it consumer experience, was the most important part of the business, like I really mean it, and I'll dive in on it in 1,000,001 different angles. But the reason this came about was when I was looking at the space, we didn't have a lot of money compared to the rest of people. So I couldn't go and spend on getting the most professional looking content or building the most beautiful website. But one thing that's free is giving people a great experience. At the end of the day, like picking up that damn phone, calling them up. How did it go? Hey, no problem. This got messed up. That got messed up. I got that covered. I'll drop the box off myself. Don't worry about it. Respond to emails within an hour. Actually, these are things that when you're an underdog, that's the difference, because the big guys aren't doing that. They take all their customers for granted. They take all of the retention for granted. They think that just because of the big players, they're going to get everything. And we just identified that early on. And then in terms of the standard, it was like, this is our only competitive advantage in the early years. So everything we do needs to revolve around this. And so I spearheaded that just early on, getting it started and kind of setting sort of what the expectation needed to be. And then luckily our first employee, Irma, so the director of consumer experience at TruLocal, took that and just ran with it. And I always say, I'm like, obviously I'm biased, but she is the number one person when it comes to the consumer experience. So she would come up with all the initiatives, would come up with how we wanted to make our customers feel special. She then also managed the customer service team members and was diving in on that. And in terms of standards, like if you think about it, to this day, we still have handwritten notes in all of our boxes. I think that might change soon. Obviously, different. I'm heading out at the end of the year, and we've got some turnover. But that was something that was the most important thing. Was in the early days we could do handwritten boxes or handwritten notes. The customers that got them loved it. So why we get big, we're going to stop doing it? That makes no sense.
Yeah.
So we're setting the standard, and those are the type of things that we are not going to compromise on.
Do you have like someone who's like main job is just to write notes? Because how many boxes are you sending a day?
A lot.
Exactly.
So shout out to I know what's happening right now in the warehouse. Shout out to the TruLocal fulfillment team, packing boxes, writing notes. But it's important. And, I always joke about it too, but, people always talk about, what's important with the acquisition and is it this, is it that? And I'm like, listen, I truly felt like if I just kept working, I was going to reach this position one day. So that wasn't a surprise, but the most value I got out of it was that even though you have this confidence, so to your point, chasing your purpose, are you getting closer or further from your purpose? That builds your confidence. Even if you're the most confident person on the planet, until you achieve that purpose, you're like 99% confident. Because deep down, there are a lot of people telling you you're doing the wrong thing. And even though you might not let it shine through or make it influence your actions too much, deep down, you always are wondering, like, there is that thing where it's like, okay, you're the real deal. And the thing that selling the company, and so as we were building the company, there's a lot of things that people told us we shouldn't do. Do this, do this, do that. And there were a lot of times where I'd pick a different option that I felt was the right one, but I was like, fuck, this better work out. The thing about selling the company was that it gave me the ultimate conviction in knowing that my gut was right. So the things that we did go down, the path that we did go down, it's like, wow, you could never want to change it. Never want to change a damn thing. Could some things have been done better? Probably. Could some things have been done faster? Maybe. Could some things have been done bigger? Potentially. But you think I'm going to roll the dice again and be like, oh, if I just done that one thing different? No, like the outcome we got is the best thing in the world. So to the point, just maintaining standards and doing that, I think was a huge part of what we got out of it at the end.
Of what built it. I think, shout out to Candicia, our past podcast guest, she asked the question, how do you scale the company? I think that's actually one of the main answers to that, is having set standards. Now, was there like a guidebook that you created? Like, I would love to get into the nitty gritty. So, like, that's one thing that we're noticing as well as you're hiring editors, as you're creating like our business at scale. Maintaining quality, something that we really are, excited to do. So, I'd love to get more answers from that.
So yeah, so I think one thing is that there's a big difference between growing your company and scaling your company. And I think a lot of founders gotta, especially if you're gonna go talk to VCs and things like this, like you gotta know the terminology because VCs will sniff that out real quick. So you listen, growing a company is one thing, right? And aggressively growing your company is also something, but that's not necessarily scaling. Scaling a company is you are getting bigger while becoming more efficient. That's scaling a company. So it's like scaling, let's say, Facebook ads, okay? You got a $10,000 a month budget, and let's say you got a $100 cost per acquisition. So you spend $10,000, you're gonna get customers for $100. Anybody can go and jump that $10,000 up to $20,000. Anybody can do that. It's not growing, it's not scaling. But typically what will happen is your cost per acquisition is going to go up to like $200 as well, or $250, or it's going to go even higher. Because now you're starting to saturate, you're pushing things past the breaking point, and you're not doing it in a systematic, thoughtful way. You're just growing. Scaling would be taking that $10,000, bringing it up to $20,000 while maintaining a $100 cost per acquisition. That's just a very micro example of that, but you look at it with cost of goods, right? So as your company is growing, you should be able to reduce your cost of goods, the economies of scale. When it comes to recruiting and hiring, the bigger you're getting, you should become more efficient and save money on it. So that's the thing that a lot of founders need to understand. Growing your company, there's nothing wrong with growing your company, but just make sure when you use the word scaling with people that are trying to establish your level of business acumen, you got to make sure that you know the difference between, look, I'm looking to grow my company and I need money to go do that, or are you looking to scale your company? So that's like the one thing I noticed. So in terms of tips, man, I wish I had something. I had no business school background, no classes, no nothing. I didn't know anything. All I did was decide that I wanted to do it and then just take every punch straight to the face and then somehow get back up. Yeah. Much. Luckily though, this book, True Founder, this is the one. This is the book that I wish that I had whenever I was getting started.
Yeah, let's get into that, man. Like writing a book, like what inspired to write the book?
Yeah, honestly, I never thought about writing a book. I'm not a huge writer, obviously. C's get degrees kind of type of guy, but I'm a huge note taker. So I have this massive. So I'm not a writer, but I'm an avid note taker. So any idea that I ever get, I write down into my reminders, just quick point form. And then probably once a week, I'll take that idea and extrapolate it or expand on it in like Evernote or whatever. And I build it out and I just leave it and it just collects dust, digital dust. So I've honestly probably got like hundreds of pages of just random notes. So when the company sold, actually Forbes reached out. So the funny thing about this is this almost never happened because it was in my junk mail. And you know, the like Forbes junk mail thing, like, oh, hey, you know, it's Forbes or whatever, like subscribe for this, subscribe
just,
for
and
that.
then you click unsubscribe, you're like, whatever.
I know, unsubscribe. So when I saw it, I just, for whatever reason, I opened it and it was like, hey, listen, like this is actually Forbes and we want to talk to you about a book. And I thought it was just a junk, but I'm like, you know what, let's just take a chance and send a message back. So, you know, hopped on a call with Forbes and they educated me on the fact that they do publishing, which I didn't know. And they accept 60 authors a year to publish a book for. So we started talking and they're like, look, you know, we did the background check. You just sold the company this, you know, like you got a story here for sure. You know, you're 31, well, 30 at the time. Like, what do you want to do? So, you know, went probably for about a month going back and forth chatting with them and decided to pull the trigger on it. And that's kind of where True Founder was born, even though at the time we had no idea what the hell we were going to call it. And it started becoming this ridiculous exercise of how do you structure a book. And for me, because I was on a 2-year contract still with TruLocal was always my focus, right? But at the same time, TruLocal was growing. We were bringing in new people. It was going to be handed off eventually. So it was kind of like, okay, well, what can I do to kind of stay sharp during this time as well? So my nights and weekends were filled with writing a book, which was very timely because now that, you know, now that things are moving on, this is the main focus. So early on in the process, I was thinking more about doing a story. I was like, okay, sweet. I'm going to do a story about my life, you know, the whole high school thing.
Everything
exactly,
like that,
all that
football.
stuff.
Lululemon.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Lululemon, all that stuff. But the thing that ended up happening was that as I was writing all of it out and going through these life experiences, I realized that I didn't have the skill at least to tie back the learnings that I got during those times, considering I only realized the learning aspect of it at a later date. So for example, you know, just being this asshole kid in high school and then deciding to flip that around and dedicate, you know, my life to this purpose of playing football. I didn't know how to tie that back to this big giant learning because I only learned that, you know, 10 years later that's how significant it was. So where I'm going with this is that the idea of doing just a story really wasn't panning out. And then on the other hand, it was also, look, I'm 30, man. Like I'm just getting started. You know, like for me, I've always been saying this. I'm like, I don't know what my purpose is moving forward, but I can tell you right now, like TruLocal is the stepping stone in the sense of this is where I can get my feet wet. This is where I can show everybody what I'm capable of doing. This is to try to show that, listen, man, like with a great vision, an amazing team, a dedication, a purpose, you can go and build something great. But this is, you know, to tee up what's next. So I started being like, I don't really want to share too much of my story yet because it's still being written. So then it went to, okay, who is this even for? So I don't like the idea of the story. Who is this even for? And I was struggling a lot because I was thinking about my peers reading this. I was thinking about executives reading this. I was thinking about VCs reading this. I was thinking about founders reading this. I was thinking about high school kids. And of course, you're starting to try to build something for everybody, right? And everybody knows if you're building a business and you're trying to build something for everybody, you build nothing for nobody. So then it was like, oh my God. And I was like 3 months into the process. I'm like, I got a year to do this. I've pretty much nothing after 3 months. And it kind of just hit me like a rock. I'm like, write a book for yourself. Like write a book for who you were when you needed it the most. And then I'm like, okay, well, that would have been when I just started TruLocal and I was a first-time founder. And everything just opened up and it became so clear that this book needed to be exclusively for first-time founders. And first-time founders are anything from someone thinking about quitting their job to start a business all the way through to being 4 years into their business and they're just still figuring it out as they go. And once that became clear, man, the book wrote itself, honestly. And it just
flowed out of you.
It flowed because then I went back through all my notes and it was all the teachings and the learning. So it became, instead of being this story-based thing where I'm this character and going through all this, it was, no, this is a tactical guide. And I will sprinkle in my life experiences to help show some of the points. And really all of the experiences that I share are to show that like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like there are so many mess ups that it's like, none of this was planned. This all just came from this determination. So that's where it came from. 16 chapters, pretty much just going through everything that I think is important for first time founders to know, or anybody that what they want to know from someone who's just recently done it.
Yeah. And what's your favorite chapter? Like when you look out at 16, which one, like, would you say this was my favorite to write? And I think it's going to have a major impact on the founder reading it.
Yeah.
Good question.
So yeah, there's two. I think it's two different things. My favorite one versus the one that has the most value. I think the one that has the most value, and it's a sleeper, because I think you'd look at the chapter and be like, oh, that's cool. I can't wait to get there. But it's like I do a chapter on working with agencies, so dev houses, marketing agencies, all that. Because when I talk to founders, that like obviously we get calls all the time. People are like, hey, can I pick your brain on this? Can I pick your brain on that? And I've dealt with so many founders that are looking to bring an agency on for the first time, and the questions. It's like, should I use an agency? Should I hire in-house? How do I negotiate the contract with an agency? And I've been burned by agencies before, and every founder has also. So I have a very specific way that I work with agencies, and it's served me well now at this point. And I wanted to put that in there. So like literally how to negotiate agency contracts, how to decide whether or not you should use an agency. Should you hire in-house? Should you hire to bring someone in-house? Should you not? How to keep agencies accountable. That to me is the chapter that, believe it or not, will probably have the most takeaway value from for founders. But my favorite chapter writing was one of the mindset. So that's a tangible chapter. To me, it was one of the mindset chapters, which was being a first-time founder is all about being a professional problem solver. So forget what you think about your titles. Forget about, oh, I'm a CEO, oh, I'm a CTO, I'm a president, I'm a head of sales. No, you ain't none of that shit. Your job as a first-time founder is to be a professional problem solver. That's it. The better you become at realizing that all your job is, you exist to just solve problems, no matter how big or small, and no matter what department it's in, the sooner you figure that out, the way easier your life is going to be as a first-time founder. So that's some of the tactical stuff in the book. But really the whole book is this uncompromising explanation that work-life balance is a joke, in my opinion, especially for a first-time founder. If you're at where you want to be in life and things are good and rosy, so maybe you got a 9 to 5 that you're excited about, you've got a career plan that works for you, or you're already hyper successful and you've got resources, yeah, of course, take your foot off the gas, enjoy life a little bit, find some balance. But when you're a first-time founder, means you probably had no money, you've put all of it into the business, you've asked friends and family to join you on the journey, either financially or to help you. You are pretty much chasing this life's purpose and life's goal. Like, how dare you think, in my opinion, that this should be easy and comfortable? Let's go back to LeBron. Like, when you look at a pro athlete who sacrifices everything in their life to spend more time in the gym, more time hooping, more time going to camps, more time finding different leagues. When you look at a billboard artist who takes every last dollar they have, they skip paying rent and instead use that money to go to the studio. Even like academics, like you look at someone who wants to go do a PhD for like 10 years and they give up starting a life, starting a family, doing all the stuff to be 100%, actually like 120% full tilt chasing that goal. We reward them and we say, oh my God, you're so dedicated and you're amazing. And I wish I was that committed. But if it's a founder, oh man, you work too hard. Like you shouldn't work that. You need more work-life balance. And that to me is ridiculous. So this book is for anybody out there who is either thinking about starting a business or starting a business and feels like they're underwater and feels like, oh my God, like this shit is hard, this shit is heavy. It's a lot easier to go through that knowing it was supposed to be hard and knowing it was supposed to be heavy, and everybody out there in the same position feels that same way. That's a lot easier than always having people in your ear saying, you work too much. If we could take some time off, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Right? If we didn't have to keep pushing that boulder up the hill, would we not? We don't do it for fun. We do it because this is the self-imposed struggle and responsibility that we have taken on with the hopes of living a better life.
Yeah.
We chose to do that. No one's forcing us to do it. So this book is, I just want to start dispelling that stuff. Like,
so what's your, how do I say this? What do you say to those people who say, oh, mental health this, burnout this, da 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 da? Because that's a big thing in our culture,
sure.
Especially entrepreneurship culture. So with this mindset of saying, screw that work-life balance, you got to grind it all. Like, we're on the hustle over everything podcast right now. You got to hustle, right? What do you say to those people who bring that narrative up that you're going to burn out and it's not fun?
The thing that I would say to that is, look, you know yourself, okay? If you feel like you're on that cusp, do what's best for you. To me, it's more about the outside narrative and the outside input that it should be normalized and that it should be easier. That's what gets me. So, and I talk about it in the book. I talk about, like, if you want to talk about burnout, there are ways to, like, and that's like a whole thing in and of itself. So like, once again, if you want to avoid burnout and you know you have to be full tilt, first of all, be realistic in how long it's going to take. Minimum 5 years. You should be willing to commit minimum 5 years to this. If you know that right off the bat, you're already in a better position than someone who's like, I'll give it a shot for a year and see what happens. Because then when that year becomes 2 years and 3 years, they're already stressed. They're already like, oh my God, this is longer than I thought. Then it goes back into this idea of, do you have a purpose? That is, if you have a purpose and you're chasing a purpose, realistically, like that's going to give you all the energy you need to keep going when you're at that limit, right? And you've got to find a way to stay motivated for as long as possible. So that's where your purpose is going to come in. But then on top of that too, to avoid burnout, I have this huge opinion that you need to start finding wins in the small things. So let's say you live a comfortable life, typical 9 to 5, everything's good, you know, nothing wrong with that. The way that you live your life is you kind of look for these big milestones that happen maybe like 4 times a year. A birthday, a holiday, a raise, maybe you buy a new car, buy a house. You know, these like large things. Okay, I just had my birthday. Woo, I was excited for that. I got a vacation in 4 months, right? And typically, you know, you got your energy levels and your energy levels kind of like dwindle down and they bounce back up whenever you do something you like. And, you know, they dwindle down and they bounce back up. So what ends up happening is that doesn't work as a first-time founder, because when you're chilling doing your 9 to 5 normal life, you don't get put into situations that stress you out as much. Like you're not in this self-imposed kind of thing. So your energy levels can stay fairly high until you get this next big milestone, like a birthday or whatever it might be, and then it bounces back up. Well, as a first-time founder, you're getting kicked in the face every single day. Your energy levels are so goddamn low all the time that if you go to zero, that's when you get to a burnout. And I feel like if you were to try to be a founder and use that same sort of, okay, I'm just going to refill my tanks on the next big win, you won't make it, because you won't make it 3 months of just declining energy. It's not going to happen. Like if you keep just going straight down for 3 months, you're not going to make it to the 3rd month, to the 4th month and have that big win. Maybe it's a financing or an investment or something like that. So I talk about how, look, you got to reframe that and you got to start sucking water from a stone, in the sense that you need to find energy in the small wins. So how do you stay positive at the end of the day and when the whole world around you is on fire? So in my opinion, it's, you know, if you wake up on time, okay, don't just like brush that off. Like when you're running a business and you're doing all your stuff and you've got team to manage and you've got personal life and all this, like you woke up on time, high five, tiny little boost of energy. Congratulations, you did it. Okay. Then you look at the next thing. Okay, I ate my healthy breakfast or whatever diet or whatever you're doing. You did this next thing. Okay, great, sweet. Congratulations, you did that. Then you made it to the gym in the morning. Okay. In my opinion, finding little minor energy boosts from that keeps you going. And what it also does is it creates this momentum for you to crush the goals throughout the day. Because if you woke up in the morning and you slept in already, what are the odds of you then doing the things you need to do during that day? You're already at a disadvantage. Whereas if you've done 3 of these things that you know it's part of your routine and you know that there's a chance that you might not do them, but if you do them, okay, well then you're more likely to do the next one. And you're more likely to do the next one. So you woke up early, high five, great. Well, now I need to go to the gym because I woke up early. This is great. Oh yeah, I made it to the gym. Well, now I worked out and woke up early. Great. Okay, I'm gonna eat a healthy breakfast. Shit, yeah, I did these 3 things. You know what? I am gonna tackle my emails on time. Wow, now I did that too. You're just building these wins. So at least that way, when a bomb blows up by noon, you're at least kind of got a little bit of energy in the tank that you're going. So I elaborate more on it in the book, but to me, it's important to kind of think about life that way.
As you reflect in bed too, when you look back and you're like, damn, I did this, I did that, I did that. I've had moments like that too. Like I worked out in the morning, got the pump. You know, that's the hardest thing, is like getting that lift, because you procrastinate so much and then you're like, I already worked out 3 times this week. I don't need to hit my 4th workout. And then that workout, when it comes along, it just feels such like a dread, and I hate it. So I'm gonna start celebrating those like small wins too.
Yeah, it's just like, once again, that to me is self-care.
Yeah.
Right. Like that to me is the self-care. It's not so much about, and like I don't advocate for this like Elon Musk style, like run yourself into the ground.
Like wake up at like 4. You see those CEOs who wake up at 4:30 in the morning or 4 o'clock.
I was doing 5 a.m. for a while.
But you know the thing is, it's like, do what works for you.
That's exactly
thing,
it.
right?
That's exactly
There's
it.
this whole standard like, oh yeah, like, yo, like the CEO wakes up at 4:30, like they're working out, they've done yoga, they've done meditation. I'm like, how do they operate like this? And then it's like this pressure as an entrepreneur to operate like this person, because that's who you aspire to be. But you can find your own way of success in just what works the best for you at that stage of your life or career, but you're still going to get results, but it brings you happiness at the same time. It's just not trying to fit yourself in a mold of what a CEO is.
That's exactly it. And of course, like, you know, you want to look at people that have done it and think that those same skills are going to translate well to you. But if it doesn't, then it doesn't. Like, there are so many night owls, right? Like, how many people just absolutely crush it at night?
Yeah.
You know, well, that's the complete opposite of waking up early. So it's not so much about following what they do, but the thing that I would highly recommend is a routine. And for me, that helped a lot. Like, when you're in the trenches grinding and like a year feels like it becomes like a month, like because you're just doing the same thing, pushing the same boulder, having a routine is a really, really good way to just stay sane and just kind of settle into like this thing. It's kind of like when you're running, right? Like, you know, you look at runners and they kind of settle into this groove after the pain. Like, okay, they were like hurting for a while, but then they just kind of settle in. That's where you want to be, is in that zone. So, you know, to the point with the mental health, listen, I think the way that you put it is the best way. You got to do what works for you. But I also think that we got to start talking more that like, look, life isn't fair. It's not going to be fair. It's not supposed to be fair. And the only thing that matters to me when I'm thinking about this whole idea of, okay, work-life balance is, if you know that life isn't fair, who has an increased chance of making it in business? It's the person that can do it for the longest and operate at the highest possible level for the longest period of time. So for some people, maybe that's like, you know what, I grind it out hard for, you know, 4 months, then I take a week off. For some people, maybe it's like I grind it out at a mediocre pace for a year and then take my weekends off. It could be whatever you want, but find what works for you so you can keep putting the effort out there, and keep producing in a way that makes it so you're competitive. Especially considering there are people out there that are like, no, this is my life. This is everything. And this is everything that matters to me. And I'm going to give it my all, right? You look at fighters, people talk about it all the time. Like, you don't want to go be a casual boxer, right? Because you're going up against kids that when they go home, they've got no food in the fridge. They've got nothing.
Survival.
It's survival. But that's the same exact thing with business. You are going up against founders that are putting everything on the line.
Mark Cuban said one thing. He was like, you know what? Business is the greatest sport ever because there's no quarters, there's no timeouts, there's nothing. It's 365, 24/7, and there's some other kid across the world trying to kick your ass. You know, so it's like every single day it's game time. Every single second is game time. So if you're chilling, you're doing this balance thing, someone's eating your market share.
Man, that's it.
Someone's taking over, right? So it's a competitive sport day in, day out, and it's all about stamina. Who has the stamina to endure the pains and the ups and downs to ultimately see your goal? Like the way you did that acquisition, like you saw it through.
Yeah.
And that's big time, bro.
It is. Thank you, man. It was nuts. And like, that was the darkest time of my life for sure. Like that 10 months was, so I have a theory too that, you know, I wish I could articulate it better, but you know, whether you believe in like, you know, karma or the energy or whatever, like is your destiny written in the stars? Who knows? But I believe that there is, you know, a bit of a, let's say, an irony to life. And to me, it's this idea that you will always face off against the most difficult challenge you could ever face right before getting everything you ever wanted. When you have a giant goal, you will never get handed that. There's no world where you have this giant ambitious goal that maybe only 1% or 5% of the population have, and there's no way you're going to stumble into that. There's no way you're going to get to that finish line without this giant monster popping up right beforehand. And that can materialize in a lot of different ways. But when I look at it with TruLocal, of course, when I started TruLocal, I was like, oh, great. Okay, we're going to build a company and we'll sell it for like $2 million in a year. It'll be great. But of course, as time goes on, it's like, well, shit, now it's been 2 years, now it's been 3 years, now I want the valuation to grow and all this stuff. And now you realize that it does take around 5 years to get to a good exit. And the thing that hit me the hardest with that was that 10 months of due diligence was the hardest time. And we've been through some dark days in TruLocal. Like, that's the one thing I always tell people. I'm like, listen, you want to go talk to someone who's got war stories for you? Go talk to a D2C food founder. Like, that's just a highly competitive, lots of logistics. So we went through a lot of stuff. But that last 10 months was the hardest. So to me, like, the final boss battle was this last 10 months. And ironically, it took all of the stuff I learned during my journey to fight this final boss. All of the skills and tips and tricks and mindset and how I carried myself and how I dealt with situations. Even if I did get this blessing from God and he was like, you know what, I'm gonna give you this. You want to sell a company? No problem. here's the final boss battle you have to face. I would have gotten eaten alive if I didn't go through the journey, if I didn't learn it. Like the journey, the purpose of the journey was to prepare you for the final boss that gets you to where you want to go. So it's this crazy way of looking at life where it's like you get what you put out of it, right? Like everybody wants to fast forward to the end. Nothing against that. But when you reframe it and thinking that the end, this goal, before you deal with that, you're going to deal with something that is equally as ambitious or equally as large as your goal that you're chasing. It's like, are you ready for that right now? Would you want to teleport right to that moment in time? Or are you kind of like, well, look, I kind of want to practice a bit more. Like, I need to learn a little bit more along the way.
Yeah. It's actually crazy you bring that up because I was actually going to ask you because you got to your destination, which is the acquisition, which is what you wanted from day one. But like, which did you enjoy the most? Like really, was it the acquisition where you're popping champagne with your missus? Or was it the journey of packing those boxes and driving all these places to writing those notes to customers and et cetera, right? Because that changes over time too, right? So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think I do believe that the way to live life is embracing the journey. I have never been that person and I want to become that person. So that's something that I want to work on because especially now when I'm looking at what I want to do next, I'm like the worst poster boy ever for like that like healthy work-life balance thing. Hence why I want to talk to founders that might feel the same way. But I was like, I'm going to go through the trenches to get to this point. And when you were in it, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing if it was ever going to sell, not knowing if you're doing the right thing, like it's tough and it's scary. And I always say that founders, we're built for work. We'll put the hours in. It's not about that. We'll hustle and we'll put the work in. The thing that sucks as a first-time founder is that cloud that's hanging over your head of uncertainty and responsibility. That's something that makes the work so much more unbearable. And that in its moment in time, to try to say that I ever would have sat down and been like, wow, I missed this. There's no way you never would have thought that. The sick, twisted part about life is that, of course, once you get past it, you kind of look back on it and it's a little bit more sentimental. And you're like, oh my God, like those moments, those times, those things. And I think that that's where people get to on their deathbeds and stuff, right? They think about, oh, life was hard or this and that. But you start looking back on it and being like, I should have appreciated this more. I should have appreciated that more. So for me, the way I look at it, I'm glad that I learned this in real time with TruLocal because I'm a very big believer that you get what you put out there. So I'm in this crazy position where I look back and sometimes I talk to, my wife about it all the time. And I'm like, I feel sick and twisted because there are parts of me that miss being in the game and playing and being a player in the game and being a soldier and going out there. And I miss that, but I almost don't like putting that out in the world because I'm like, that's the world's joke of being like, yo, I'm going to give you the exact same thing when you go into your next one, whatever it might be. Right. So it's like this crazy thing, but it's the truth, So I got a certain type of contentment and satisfaction when the company sold. Absolutely. Achieving the goal, fulfilling the purpose that I had at the time, looking at the bank account's awesome. And then that final level of confidence that I wanted to get from it. Those are all some of the great things that you get. But the journey gave me another sort of win, and going through it and appreciating it and reminiscing and surviving it gave me a different type of character and a different type of lessons, I guess, like just like little gems. So I think when I was going through TruLocal, I did it in tandem. I didn't like the journey at the time, but getting to the end of it made me realize that the journey was part of it. Once again, even just talking about this boss battle thing, it's all intertwined. And what I want to carry moving forward is a better appreciation of that so that I can enjoy the things that I'm doing and I can appreciate them as they're happening while I'm out chasing for this goal. Now, I don't know if that's possible, right? I don't know. You look at it like, and I'm talking from movies here, but you look at a character in a movie, I want to go fight the war. I want to go do it. I want to go serve my country. I want to go whatever. Fast forward 30 minutes into the movie and the guy's, laying in a trench with his friends everywhere dead. And he's like crying. He's like, I want my mom, right? Like, it's like, is that the irony of life? Is that kind of what we're here? We're always going to think the grass is greener. We're always going to think we want things and then get them and realize they're not what we wanted, or think that we don't want things. And when they're not there, we are like, oh, should I miss it? I don't know. I don't have an answer, but that's how I looked at the TruLocal acquisition compared to the journey.
Yeah, man, that's beautifully said.
Yeah, honestly, man. All right, we're gonna start working towards wrapping up. But a few questions that I think some of the entrepreneurs that are listening want to know is: was there ever a tipping point where you felt like we had gone to the other side of it? Maybe it was Dragon's Den, but I would love to know if you felt that there was a tipping point that looking back, like, oh, that was a huge like mover for me, and if I know if I'm getting started again, I would do that again.
So yeah, I think it's two separate things. So what would I do or double down on if I were to do it again? That's one thing versus when was the tipping point. So I'll start with the tipping point. The tipping point was probably it was the last year before the acquisition. So it took about 4 years before I was comfortable thinking that, okay, the company's not going to go under tomorrow for whatever reason, or at least thinking that the vulnerabilities that our business had, so whether it be product supply chain vulnerabilities, whether it be competitive vulnerabilities, financial vulnerabilities, the things that can blow up what's going on. It was 4 years until I felt that we had a good handle on all those, and then like definitively 4 years, where I could kind of, breathe lighter, and it was, it was good, in that sense. So that was a 4 year mark. I would say that the things that did that, obviously crossing over to profitability, that's, huge, being a self-sustaining business on that side. I think, I got to give a huge shout out, to our COO, Todd. So he was the first time I ever had an executive level individual that had sold a number of companies, and that was someone that, if I was gone, it wasn't a collaboration of people that kept the company going. I felt confident that he could make it happen. And the thing that Todd brought is it really got me taking a look at our leadership team, all of which were people that we hired at like entry level positions early on. So like my friends, Irma's friends that we brought in that left their jobs to come pack boxes, send off customer emails, and like fill out spreadsheets with us, they all became the directors of their departments. And I think Todd was that final piece that made me take a step back and look. And, at the time I had 12 managers, like someone managing all of our departments. So everything from, operations, development, finance, HR, marketing, consumer experience, like I could go on, but I had someone that was the head of all of that. And I realized that like I was becoming almost, insignificant and irrelevant. And it was like, wow, we've actually built something here. And it's the huge testament to the team. So I think when the team came into themselves, which I think was a defining moment, like I very much believe there was a moment when the team finally got the like, oh shit, like, yeah, I'm running this department, and we did this, and look what I've built with this team, and blah, blah, blah. That was a big moment for me where it was, okay, that was a tipping point. In terms of things that I would do today, yeah, like it's a tough one. I would just try to build a better product. I think what I mean by that is that, going into it, okay, Marc Andreessen had this great talk where, you're talking about how do you make a great pitch. So Marc Andreessen from Andreessen Horowitz, one of the largest VCs in the world. And it's like, you can spend all the time in the world making a better pitch, or you can just make a better business, right? Because you can have a super shit pitch, but if your business is great, then you're fine. So for me, when I think about, do I want to sell meat online to people across Canada that has to be frozen, and we're going to get into this hyper competitive space? Yeah, I probably would just built a better business. Probably would have gone more down the tech side. And I think luckily TruLocal ended up being at the right time, at the right place, with the right people. And we were able to execute well and build out what it was. But I think if I were to start off today, I would just go on the tech side instead. And the lucky thing with TruLocal is that it did end up helping a lot of people with the farmers, and the suppliers and the consumers that were looking for this type of product. But I would look more at doing something just more web-based. So, okay, look, if we're fulfilling the need of connecting consumers and suppliers, in 2015, the best way to do that would have been to sell them product online. When I look at 2022, what's the best way to achieve that goal? It's a very different answer. It's a completely different product, different answer. So what I would just challenge people to think about, like, get rid of their preconceived notions on what they think works, and ask yourself, and I say this with like founders that are a year or 2 years into their business, like, if you were to start your company again today, all right, when you started it, you had a finite amount of resources, you had a small team, maybe no co-founder and no money. Great. This is where we all start. A year into it, wipe the slate clean and say, if you were to start this business again with the customers you already have, the product you already have, the team you already have, and the money you already have, what would you now do differently? And it gives you this really, really awesome way of breaking the cycle that you might be in that is based off old thoughts and old assumptions. And it allows you to become incredibly appreciative of what you have built, even if it's not huge. You're like, oh yeah, if I was starting this company today, I'm still got all the stuff more than when I started before. And it also allows you to be way more innovative and you can find more. So I always say, like, there's not one specific thing because it's different for all the different industries and the different products. Like what worked well for us might not work well for other people. So I would just say that the one tip, and it's also in the book, is I would just say, listen, even like 6 months, take stock of what resources and where your team is at, where the company's at. And imagine if you had to start the company all over again today, but you had all of these resources already ready to go. And you'll be surprised at how quick you're like, oh shit, that is a stupid product. Or like, I could do this better. And that's how I would look at it.
That's I like that. I like that. I really like that piece of advice, for real.
Man, a lot of it, it's a wild thing, because when you're an operator, like when you're in it, the last thing you want, I hate mindset stuff. It's like, no. Like when you're on the grind and you're chasing it, it's like, no, tactical. Give me something, like, what can I actually do? And I get it. And I love that. But it's so wild. It's like, I've gone over to the dark side where it's like, you know what? It's not actually about what you do. It is about how you think about things. It is, once again, being a professional problem solver. Like, how are you approaching it? Is it the tools that you're using, or is it the methodology and the principles in which you deploy said tools and how you create the feedback and all type of stuff? So, that's one thing I would leave with people, is you got to really get the way that you think about your business right, because that's what's going to carry you further than the tools that you're using.
Big gems. Did I not say we had a treat for you?
Got a treat, man. Oh wow, this is a sermon, bro.
This is great. It's funny. I wonder what it would be like listening to the podcast, that we did when we were in it.
Yeah.
Now on the other side, it's like, things have changed.
And just being in here with you in person, it just makes a whole difference. You know what I'm saying?
Whole different
Whole
energy.
difference.
This is the way to do it, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, man. Honestly, I'm excited to see what's gonna be like 2 years when you have a full studio and everything. It's gonna be a whole different ball game.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you to sign up my book too.
Oh,
my
I got
copy.
you guys for
For
sure on the
sure,
book.
for sure.
For the book comes out February 7th.
Yes.
All right. So that's when it's being shipped out, but pre-sales are on now. So you can either get it at marclafleur.com, Marc with a C, or truefounderbook.com.
Yes.
And then also we are doing what I consider to be the ultimate, like, these are the ultimate prize pack for first-time founders. So because the book is all about being tactical, because the book is all about actually giving something to a founder that they can take away and start doing things right away, we want to do a giveaway. So we're going to be doing, starting January 7th, anybody who's pre-ordered the book, and including now, you are going to get credits towards all of the best agencies in Canada, from Google ads, Facebook ads, SEO, PR, video creation, as well as development work on a website. So if you win that, you are going to, whether you're just thinking about starting a business or you're 2 years into your business, you're going to get access to the best agencies. They're going to give you actual deliverables, and it's just meant to supercharge a first-time founder's journey. So that's the idea.
Wow,
Amazing, man.
That's amazing. That's huge. If you don't, listen, we're going to link it in the description below. If you don't go and do that right now, open up a new tab right now. Right now. Right now. All right, y'all. The hustle is what you can't control. So control your grind and control your life. I'm Alex.
And I'm Moino Sende. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I'm Marc Lafleur.
Wow.
Fleursy, baby.
All right, and that's the show, y'all. Peace.